My name's Jake, and I've been happily married to my wife, Emily, for 15 years. Our family brought me so much joy, and I always appreciated the love Emily gave me. As the years went by, our bond only got stronger. We were blessed with 2 wonderful daughters, and both of us had steady, successful careers. Emily worked as a translator at a film studio, while I was a security guard for a private company. My love for her was beyond words, and I truly believed in her unwavering loyalty to me. We were healthy, lived in a beautiful house in a great neighborhood, and our life honestly felt perfect. After we had our second daughter, Emily had a tough time shedding the baby weight. But honestly, her striking blue eyes still had the same magic. She didn't wear contact lenses anymore. They made it hard for her to read or work with documents, so she switched to wearing glasses. Big ones, too. They actually made her eyes even more captivating. I never saw her differently because of any of that. I was sure she loved me just as much as I loved her. The bond we shared was something special, and obvious to anyone who saw us together. With our 2 beautiful daughters and no worries about money, life was full of joy. But all of that started to shift after something unexpected happened, something that shook the peace and perfection we built over the years. Lately, Emily had gotten into the habit of going out with her female coworkers. They'd hit up different pubs every Friday after work, kind of like their weekly tradition. She always told me it was just a way to unwind and catch up, and honestly, I didn't see any reason to stop her. I worked early mornings anyway, so those nights she was out, I stayed home with our daughters, made them dinner, helped with their homework, and I truly enjoyed that. Emily usually got back around 8 p.m., so we still had the weekends to spend together as a family. Saturday dinners were our little tradition, and we cherished those moments. But something started to change a few months ago. Emily began coming home later and later after her nights out. Instead of walking in at 8, it was closer to 10. And I could tell she'd had a few drinks. Even though I mentioned it once or twice, I didn't push the issue. After all, she was still the same sweet, caring woman I'd always known. Every time she came home, she'd greet me with that warm, familiar smile, and I couldn't help but hug her tight. I told myself that these nights out were just her way of blowing off steam after a long work week, nothing more. I trusted her. I believed she just needed a little escape now and then. Even when her late returns became more frequent, I chose not to worry. That is, until a few weeks ago. It was a Monday morning when I got an email from someone anonymous, just signed it as a friend. My first instinct was to delete it without even opening it. But then, something made me stop. I hesitated, and then decided to read it. The message said, "I happened to be at the Black Crow last Friday night, and saw your wife there with a group of people. She seemed to be having a great time. But I couldn't help noticing she danced almost the entire evening with one specific guy from her office. In case you're interested, I took a photo on my phone. Take a look. If, after seeing it, you still feel there's nothing wrong, then just ignore this message." There was a file attached to the email, a photo I had to open to see. I hesitated, wondering why someone would even send me something like this if it wasn't meant to be alarming. But the seed of doubt had already been planted, and now I couldn't shake this sinking feeling in my gut. The idea that Emily might have been dancing with some guy, a man she never even mentioned, made my chest tighten. Up until then, I had always assumed these little Friday night outings were just girls' nights out with her female coworkers. But what if that wasn't true? What if the guy wasn't even from her office? Maybe he was just some random dude who happened to be at the Black Crow that night. Still, I couldn't ignore the feeling building in my throat, that awful, dry lump of unease. Despite every part of me wanting to close the email and forget it, I gave in. I clicked the attachment. The photo popped up on my screen, and right away, I noticed it wasn't centered, like the person who took it was trying not to be seen. In the background, I could see a long table with people from Emily's office, both men and women. The image was a little blurry, but not enough to miss what mattered. There, on the right side of the dance floor, was my wife. She was wearing the same outfit she'd worn that Friday, a beige blouse with red flowers and green leaves, and those brown pants she liked. That was the night she came home late, closer to 10:30. She'd hugged me and looked me right in the eyes. But now, looking at the photo, I saw something different. Emily was smiling, a big, carefree kind of smile. And she wasn't just dancing. She was in the arms of a tall, young guy. Their bodies were pressed tightly together, her arms wrapped around his neck. I just stared at it, stunned. I couldn't remember her ever dancing with me like that, not in public, not even in private. And I sure as hell had never acted like that with another woman. The guy's lower body was pressed up against hers, and just from the way they were holding each other, you could tell. He wanted her. And judging by her expression, she wasn't exactly pulling away. She looked content. Comfortable. Like she was enjoying it. When I saw the way they looked into each other's eyes, something inside me turned. I felt sick. That was my wife. The mother of my kids. Looking at some stranger like that. Letting him touch her like that. In public, no less. It was unreal. Emily had never danced with me like that in front of anyone. So why was she letting this guy wrap himself around her like that? Was he really just a stranger? That question hit me hard, and fast. My thoughts started spiraling. Maybe he wasn't a stranger. Maybe he was someone she worked with, someone she'd gotten close to over time. My imagination ran wild, flashing scene after scene of Emily with other men. Men I didn't know. Men she never mentioned. The nausea came on so fast I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up everything I'd had for breakfast. I couldn't believe what I had just seen, and more than that, what it suggested about the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. Was she cheating on me? Was she really capable of betraying me, and our daughters, like that? A million questions raced through my head, but one just kept coming back, over and over. Who was that guy? Was he a co-worker? A friend? A lover? How long had this been going on? And why? Why would she do this? I knew right then that I needed answers. Real answers. No more assumptions. No more hoping. I had to find out the truth. And to do that, I'd need proof. So I pulled myself together, took a breath, and decided I was going to dig. I had to know what really happened that night, and what else Emily might be hiding. For the next half hour, I stayed locked away in the bathroom off our bedroom, trying to pull myself together. My head was spinning. I felt like I was drowning in a storm of emotions, disappointment, sadness, anger, and something darker creeping in, the urge for revenge. One moment, I wanted to scream at Emily, demand the truth, unleash every bit of the rage building inside me. The next moment, I just wanted to hold her, to cry and beg her to stop whatever was going on with that guy. Divorce even flashed through my mind. But within minutes, I was already entertaining the thought of forgiveness, wondering if maybe, just maybe, we could work it out. I sat there, hunched on the toilet lid, staring at the floor, wondering if I was losing my mind. The mental tug-of-war was exhausting. But eventually, I managed to breathe, deeply, slowly, and wrestled back some control over my thoughts. I knew I couldn't act on impulse. Not now. If I let my emotions run the show, I could ruin everything, and maybe even make a huge mistake. I needed clarity. I needed facts. I had to find out the truth before I confronted Emily with anything. Until then, I'd stay quiet, watchful, patient. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going to just let this go. I needed real proof. Something solid. I had to know, was she cheating? Or was I overreacting to what could have been harmless fun? Still, even if she hadn't crossed any hard lines yet, she had lied. Or at least, she hadn't told me the whole truth. She let me believe she was going out with just her female coworkers, never once mentioning men were part of those nights. I started thinking about how close our offices were, just a few blocks apart. Since I traveled a lot for work, it wouldn't be hard for me to stop by her office during the day without raising suspicion. So the next day, around 11:30 a.m., I drove over and parked way at the back of her office lot. My company car had tinted windows, so I felt safe, unnoticed. I kept my eyes on the main exit and waited, and waited. Nothing. I stayed there until 1 p.m., but Emily never came out. I did this every day that week. Then came Friday. At exactly 12:15 p.m., I saw her. Emily stepped out of the building with 3 other people, 2 men and a woman. They all climbed into a sleek black BMW. Emily sat in the front seat, right next to the driver. I didn't hesitate. I started my engine and followed. We weaved through the city traffic, me trailing them at a safe distance, until they pulled into the parking lot of a fancy, upscale restaurant. I parked across the street, facing the entrance. From where I sat, I had a clear view of everything. And what I saw stung. As the group walked into the restaurant, I caught sight of Emily laughing, really laughing, at something one of the men said. She seemed light, carefree, like she didn't have a single worry in the world. I didn't go inside. I just waited. At 2 p.m., they came back out. Emily was walking next to a tall blonde man, the man. The same one from the photo. Their body language screamed familiarity, comfort. She playfully nudged him, and he leaned in close to say something. The chemistry between them was undeniable. I could feel my jaw tightening. They all returned to her office, disappearing inside like nothing had happened. Now, technically, Emily hadn't done anything wrong. Not yet. But something about it felt off, especially because she hadn't told me anything about having lunch with these people. I mean, it was common for her to eat with coworkers, sure. But this wasn't some regular work lunch. This was different. This felt social. Flirty. What really threw me, though, was what happened that evening. Emily didn't go out after work like she usually did on Fridays. No girls' night. No bar hopping with her coworkers. She came home at 5:15 p.m., same as always, cheerful, relaxed, with that familiar smile on her face. And I forced myself to smile back. I said nothing. I didn't ask her a single question, even though I was burning inside. I held it all in, determined not to jump the gun, not yet. After dinner, we sat on the couch watching TV. I tried to act normal, but I couldn't hold it in. I casually asked Emily about her day at work, and more specifically, about lunch. For a split second, she looked confused. Then she quickly recovered and said she had packed a tuna sandwich that morning and eaten it at her desk. She lied. Straight to my face. And maybe she was cheating. As angry as I was, something inside me still ached for her. When she looked at me with those familiar blue eyes, the ones I'd fallen in love with all those years ago, I wanted nothing more than to hold her. To believe her. To forget the lie. The emotional conflict inside me was unbearable. Love and suspicion twisting together until I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. But I knew one thing. I couldn't let emotion take the wheel. I had to stay calm. I couldn't lash out or do something I'd regret. So I let it go. I changed the subject and started talking about my day instead. I smiled when I had to. Laughed when expected. I did everything I could to keep things feeling normal. Emily didn't seem to suspect a thing. That night, we even got into a little playful argument. Twice. And she acted just like her usual self. Warm. Affectionate. Like the woman I'd married. The next day, we took the girls to the zoo. We laughed, we took photos, we shared ice cream. For a while, I actually forgot what had happened. The weight on my chest lifted just enough for me to breathe. But by the next week, the memories crept back in. I didn't follow her every day during lunch like I had before. Instead, I planned to shadow her again on Friday evening. That was the night she usually went out with her friends, and I needed to know if the pattern held. So, that Friday, I made sure I was home by the time our daughters returned from school, 3:15 sharp. I ordered pizza, made sure they were fed and happy, and told them I had to stop by the office for some late work. They were old enough now, responsible, and I knew they'd lock up and fall asleep soon after I left. By 5 p.m., I was parked outside Emily's office. Not long after, I saw her car pull out of the lot and turn in the opposite direction of our house. Right on schedule. She was clearly headed to meet her friends again. As luck would have it, a line of 6 cars on the road helped conceal mine, making it easy to tail her without drawing attention. About 10 minutes later, her Toyota and the others turned into a parking lot beside a place called the Glass Shoe. It was a hybrid of sorts, a restaurant and a bar under one roof, depending on what kind of night you were looking for. I parked at the far end of the lot and kept my eyes on the entrance. Once I saw her group go inside, I stepped out and did a slow walk around the place, surveying everything. I wanted to know exactly what kind of spot my wife spent her Friday nights in. The Glass Shoe stood a little isolated from the rest of the block, surrounded by its own parking lot. 2 of its walls faced the main road. It was a corner building, while the other 2 were bordered by a tidy cedar hedge, about 5 feet tall. Right in front of that hedge was a sleek black BMW. That black BMW. The same one I'd seen her in last week. It was parked close to the restaurant entrance, like it belonged there. That same man was probably inside too. As I got a closer look, I realized the building had multiple entrances. One led to the main restaurant, another to the bar around the back. There were fire exits too, but those were locked. It was clear that Emily and her group had used the restaurant entrance, not the bar. I headed back to my car and pulled out the disguise I had stashed in the back seat. A black windbreaker, a baseball cap, sunglasses. I even slipped in a small prosthetic mouthpiece to slightly alter the shape of my face. It made talking and drinking a bit awkward, but I didn't care. I wasn't there to socialize. I checked my reflection. Unrecognizable. At around 7 p.m., after an hour of waiting, I finally entered the bar section through a side door. The place was dim, loud, and pulsing with weekend energy. And there she was. Emily. Sitting with a group near the dance floor, laughing, sipping from a tall glass, surrounded by 6 women and 4 men. Including him. The tall blond man from the photo. The one who had his hands all over her that night. And now, he was sitting close again. Too close. When I saw her sitting next to him again, the same man from the previous Friday, I felt a familiar wave of sadness crash over me. Disappointment, suspicion, and a quiet kind of heartbreak tangled in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that something more was going on between them. Choosing to remove myself from the situation, I picked a table in the farthest, darkest corner of the bar. The dim lighting, the scattered crowd, most of them lost in their own thoughts and drinks, provided a perfect hiding place. I was confident no one would pay any attention to me here. Within minutes, the music started. People made their way to the dance floor, laughter and movement filling the room. And then I saw it, Emily dancing with him. The others at her table, 3 men and 1 woman, watched with quiet amusement, those knowing smirks painted across their faces. There was something in the way they looked at the 2 of them, as if this wasn't the first time. As if they all knew. It became painfully obvious, Emily and this man weren't just colleagues or friends. They were something more. Hours passed. Their group slowly dwindled until only 4 remained, Emily, another woman, and 2 men. Eventually, all 4 of them ended up on the dance floor. 2 couples, moving close, intimately. There was no more doubt, Emily and that man were lovers. I watched him pull her closer, his hands settling on her waist. They swayed, slow and deliberate, bodies pressed together. I saw him lean in and whisper something in her ear. She nodded. Then, hand in hand, they walked out of the bar. I followed them, quietly, carefully, keeping to the shadows. They walked to the last row of the parking lot, right beside the cedar hedge. His black BMW was there, exactly where it had been before. Now I understood why he chose that spot. It offered perfect cover. No curious eyes. No interruptions. I stayed back, watching from a distance. They got into the back seat. I couldn't look away. I needed to know, how far was Emily willing to go? I circled around to the opposite side of the lot, sticking close to other parked cars, moving in silence. Before I realized it, I was right next to the rear of his car. At first, it seemed empty. But I knew better. The heavy tints made it impossible to see clearly, but I could hear faint voices, muffled, intimate. A war raged inside me. Should I stop this now? Should I catch her in the act? Should I just walk away? Then the car began to move. Rhythmic. Subtle. But unmistakable. And the music playing? It was Emily's favorite. Rage overtook me. Without thinking, I grabbed the handle and flung the door open. The car's interior light clicked on instantly, illuminating everything. There she was. My wife. Lying on her back. Him on top of her. They froze. Emily's eyes locked onto mine, widening in pure horror. I slowly removed my glasses, then the prosthetic from my mouth. Her expression twisted from joy to shame in a matter of seconds. "Ron," she whispered. "Oh my God! Ron, please forgive me." Her voice trembled. "Don't make a decision you'll regret," she pleaded. "It meant nothing, just wait, please wait for me." I didn't answer. I closed the car door firmly, turned around, and walked back to my vehicle. She chased after me, barefoot, desperate. "Ron, please! Please wait!" But I drove away without saying another word. 5 minutes later, she burst through our front door. Disheveled. Makeup smudged. Tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God, honey, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I love you. More than anything. Please don't do this." I stood there, silent, my hands shaking. "You broke our vows, Emily," I said, my voice low and cold. "In 15 years, I never betrayed you. Not once. If I had known you were cheating, maybe I'd have found comfort somewhere else too. If fidelity means nothing to you, then maybe I would have gone looking for some fleeting pleasures of my own. Please," she begged. "Please, Ron. Just hear me out. What I did, it didn't mean anything," she cried, her voice cracking. "I wish I could turn back time and fix it all, but I can't. You have to believe me, you, the girls, you're my entire world. Nothing else matters compared to you." Tears streamed down her face as she fought to keep her composure. Then she buried her face in her hands like she was searching for some kind of salvation, something to hold onto. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed onto the sofa, whispering apologies over and over again. "Stop apologizing," I snapped. "What you did to our marriage is unforgivable." I kept my distance, grateful she wasn't standing right in front of me anymore. I was afraid of what I might do if she was. "Who is he? And how long has this been going on?" My voice shook with fury. She hesitated, then answered in a trembling whisper. "His name is Nick. He's a colleague from the studio. I swear, it wasn't supposed to happen. I love you, Ron, more than anything." But a sickening thought rose in my mind, something that made my blood boil. "Then admit it," I snapped. "Admit you've been lying to me for years, sneaking off to see him, telling me you're out with friends. Do you really expect me to believe this just started?" Panic lit her eyes. "No. Oh my God, no, it started recently. Please believe me. My love for you has only grown stronger over the years. What happened? There was no real love in it, I swear." Her eyes, swollen and red, reflected her guilt. She was a wreck, hair tangled, makeup smeared, desperation etched into every line on her face. But I couldn't let myself soften. "No," I said, the disappointment thick in my voice. "You still don't get it, Lily. Think about what your colleagues saw. Think about our family. This isn't just some secret you can bury anymore, it's a public disgrace. You didn't just betray me in private, you humiliated me. Everyone will see it. Everyone will talk. I'm sorry," she whispered again. "I can't live with that. I want a divorce." Her eyes widened. "Ron, no. Please, I'm begging you. I can't live without you. Please don't do this. I'll do anything. Let's fix this, let's save our marriage. Let's protect our girls." I turned away. I couldn't look at her anymore. Lily, our marriage started falling apart the moment you chose to be unfaithful. Everything that's happening now, this pain, it's all a consequence of your choice." Then, a sudden, piercing scream shattered the silence. I spun around and saw her collapsed on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, her face buried in her hands. Her cries, so raw, so broken, hit me like a punch to the gut. A part of me wanted to reach out, to hold her, to comfort her, but I couldn't. I was still too angry, too hurt, too betrayed. I didn't trust myself to stay in that house. I didn't trust what I might say or do. So I left. That night, I booked a room at a hotel. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My thoughts were relentless, dragging me through every painful memory, every moment we'd shared, and every lie she told. The bed felt cold. My soul felt colder. In the morning, I called my secretary and told her I wouldn't be coming in. I stayed in that room until noon, trying to collect the pieces of myself that were now scattered across a life I no longer recognized. Eventually, I went down to the hotel restaurant and forced down a few bites of food. I had no appetite, but I needed to function. Later, I decided to stop by the office. On my way there, I passed by our house. I couldn't help but glance at it, and that's when I saw it. A green Toyota parked out front. The car was unfamiliar, and my stomach twisted with dread. But then I realized it had to belong to Frances, Lily's sister. A small comfort. At least I thought the girls would have someone there for them. Someone who hadn't lied to them. What I didn't know at the time was how much worse things had become. After I left the house the night before, Lily had called her sister, unable to cope. The weight of what she'd done, of what she might lose, had broken her. The panic, the shame, the overwhelming grief pushed her past her limits. She collapsed. And now, she was in the hospital, trying to survive the aftermath of her own betrayal. I didn't learn about Lily's emotional breakdown until I arrived at my office that morning. That's when Francine, Lily's sister, called me. We talked for a long time. According to her, Lily was in a critical condition, constantly crying, anxious, and barely holding herself together. What shocked me even more was that less than an hour after I left the house the previous evening, our elder daughter had called Francine, telling her that Lily was delusional and that I wasn't there. After hearing this, Francine rushed over to my house and saw for herself how bad things were. Recognizing the urgency, she called an ambulance immediately. She promised me she'd stay at our home to care for and support my two daughters during this difficult time. She also strongly urged me to visit Lily at Santa Maria City Hospital. When our call ended, I was overwhelmed with shock. I realized how selfish and dismissive I had been the night before. Did I really choose to leave my home, abandoning my wife and daughters when they needed me the most? Maybe. But one thing was clear: if I had stayed, my pain and anger might have led me to say or do things I'd regret. Yes, Lily's betrayal played a huge role in the collapse of our marriage. But I had never thought of myself as someone who runs away from problems. Until yesterday. Was walking away from my family the right choice? Could there have been another way? The weight of that question crushed me. Tears streamed down my face as I hid behind my desk. Deep down, I wondered if forgiveness and reconciliation were even possible. Could there be a distant hope of salvaging what was left of us? Of course, Lily bore full responsibility for breaking the sacred trust we had built over the years. But the thought of ending our marriage, and the pain it would cause our daughters, felt unbearable. I knew I had to consider another path. Forgiveness. As the news of Lily's hospitalization sank in, something shifted inside me, a new determination. Without hesitation, I got in my car and drove to the hospital, ready to face the truth about her actions, no matter how painful. Doubt filled my mind as I entered the hospital. I had no clear plan. I didn't know what I was going to say. But one thing was certain: I was determined to uncover the truth. Sitting there, I remembered something my mother once told me. Cheaters always face the consequences of their actions. That saying echoed in my mind as I thought back to our life before all this. When Lily and I married at 20, our life seemed like a dream. Our two daughters brought us joy, and our cozy home in a quiet neighborhood was a symbol of peace. We didn't have money problems, and above all, our love felt real. But life changed unexpectedly. Shortly after our younger daughter turned 6, Lily got a job at a nearby film studio. Fluent in several languages, she worked as a film translator, especially in voice translation, a role she excelled at for 5 years. Thanks to her skills, we had financial stability. Then, a new translator arrived. Tall, charismatic, blonde-haired, he quickly became the center of attention among the studio staff. But unlike the many admirers around him, he seemed indifferent to their looks or charm. He spoke multiple languages like Lily did, which meant they crossed paths often. What began as a simple friendship slowly grew into something more. And here lay the problem that haunted my wife's heart. Love sneaked into her life quietly, before she even realized it, leaving her confused, torn between what she felt and what she knew was right. Before long, she understood. She had fallen for him. At first, he treated her no differently than any other coworker, focused on work, maintaining a strictly professional rapport. But when he began joining their bi-weekly outings, a subtle change took place. Gradually, their relationship crossed the line from mere colleagues to close friends. They confided in one another, sharing the intimate details of their lives. Lily never told me about any of this. Soon, he became a regular presence at gatherings and dinners with their female colleagues. Her first mistake was not telling me when men started attending these outings. With time, their connection deepened. On the dance floor, swaying to slow songs, they seemed like one entity. But I remained oblivious to the true depth of their relationship. In a dimly lit corner of the dance floor, Lily found herself locked in his embrace. Their lips met in a kiss, more than just friendly, a kiss that shook her to her core. That moment set a chain of events into motion. The following Friday, during another outing, he found an excuse to take her away from the pub. That night, their passion culminated in a secret encounter in his car. Their desire grew, and soon they found themselves entangled like wild creatures in the back seat. Overwhelmed with guilt, Lily returned home determined to give me the love and affection I deserved, unaware that as her husband, what I truly deserved was unwavering loyalty. However, because they worked together daily, it became increasingly difficult for her to distance herself from him. They had grown far too comfortable in each other's presence. But Lily's love for me remained steadfast. I was willing to sacrifice everything for Ron because my love for him was unshakable, she said. She never intended to hurt me through her infidelity, but she was gravely mistaken to believe her connection with him was stronger than the bond we shared. The affair lasted 4 months. Now, lying in a hospital bed, she revealed every detail of her betrayal. I listened quietly, tears streaming down my face. Lily vowed to do whatever it took to save our marriage. But I couldn't decide if I could live with the memories of her infidelity. I couldn't bring myself to say this to her. After all, she was in a fragile emotional and physical state, and I didn't want to cause her more pain. So I returned to my hotel room and contacted my lawyer, asking him to prepare divorce papers. I was deeply worried about how the divorce would affect Lily's condition. I didn't want her to suffer, but it seemed inevitable. While the papers were being drawn up, I spent quality time with my daughters. I never planned to seek full custody. Lily and I should raise them together, even if apart. But my plans unraveled when my lawyer delivered the divorce papers to Lily in the hospital. Her emotional state worsened when she found out. That dreadful day marked a turning point. She suffered a stroke after realizing I had started divorce proceedings. When her doctor told me, I began to despise myself. I should have waited until she recovered. I stayed by her side for 3 days, holding her hand. Lily's condition worsened, and even after 2 months, she only showed partial improvement. She was left paralyzed on her left side, a heartbreaking situation for all of us. I blamed myself entirely. But at the same time, I knew if Lily hadn't engaged in that secret affair, none of this would have happened. No matter how much I tried to convince myself to stay under the same roof with Lily and our daughters, I couldn't. Every time I looked at her, I was reminded of that betrayal in the car. So I packed my belongings and moved into a nearby rented apartment, staying close to my beautiful daughters. As much as I hated it, it was Lily herself who had turned our once happy life into chaos and suffering.